Hello everyone and welcome to this presentation on dry eye. Now, I'm doing this again for those of you that couldn't attend the webinar. We did try and record the webinar, but we did have a few technical issues, so I'm just going to go through some of the main points again. The reason I wanted to talk about dry eye is because it is something which is becoming more prevalent now, and a lot more people are suffering the symptoms of dry eye. So at the moment, around 1 in 3 people, I think, has dry eye in the UK, and it could even be more than this. And dry eye rates are now climbing in across all age groups and all genders. And this is largely driven by our modern lifestyle. Now, when Sam and I were younger, 20 odd years ago, when we were at university, dry eye was considered something really quite minimal. And back then, we didn't know a huge amount about it. It was just considered something really that was in post-menopausal women. But as I've just mentioned, it is now something that is across all generations and age groups. And what we know now, because there's been far more research done in the last 5 to 10 years, is that dry eye is not just a little thing. It is classed as a disease, dry eye disease, and it is chronic, it's progressive, which means if it's not treated or managed, it does get slowly worse over time. And it is also multifactorial, which means there's lots of different things that contribute to dry eyes. Now, for those people that suffer dry eye, and I would imagine if you're, listening to this, you suffer with dry eye yourself, and it is not a little thing. It can affect all aspects of your life: reading, driving, working, and the symptoms typically are split into 3 areas really, and some people will get all of these symptoms, some people may get only 1 or 2. But the 3 areas are, first of all, the discomfort side. So we've got irritation, grittiness, the feeling of a foreign body or something inside the eye. And for some people, dry eye can feel quite painful as well. So it's all those uncomfortable symptoms and the heaviness and the tiredness that comes with it. And then there are the visual symptoms, like blurred vision. Lots of people that suffer with dry eye will suffer with blurry vision, and it's very often intermittent. So it may not be blurred all the time, but there'll be times when it sort of fluctuates throughout the day, depending on the tasks and how we're using our eyes. And some studies have actually shown that somebody with dry eye, or particularly severe dry eye, their vision can be up to 40% worse. So it can have that much of an effect on the vision, and it's a little bit like looking through a dirty windscreen. And then we have, for some people, the aesthetic symptoms, the redness of the eye itself, the redness around the lids. And if your eyes are itchy or sore and you're rubbing your eyes, then you're going to get those dark circles and redness around the eye as well. So dry eye itself can make life, for some people, very, very miserable. But what we know now is that dry eye can be managed, and we can slow the progression of dry eye. And in fact, in some cases, if we look after our eyes each day with a lid hygiene sort of treatment, then we can even prevent dry eye potentially occurring in the first place. So today we're going to go through the 2 main types of dry eye. We're going to go through the at-home treatments that you can do, lifestyle modifications that you can do, and also some amazing in practice treatments that we've got, like Optilight, and the results have been phenomenal. So this is really worth understanding and listening to. So to really understand what dry eye is important to have a very basic understanding of the tear film, the front layer of the eyes. Now, this is the science part, so you're going to have to bear with me here. So because essentially a dry eye is a disruption of that delicately balanced tear film. So our tear film, which covers our cornea, protects the eyes, has 3 main layers. So the green layer on the image here is called the mucin layer. And this is like a mucus layer and the mucus is produced from little goblet cells in the cornea. And it's almost like this sticky layer. It's like the glue which holds all the tears onto the tear film. And then we have the middle layer, the blue layer. And this is the watery layer, or the aqueous layer. And this layer, this blue layer, is produced on the lacrimal gland, which is just sat in the upper lid. And then we have the top layer of the tear film, and this is known as the lipid layer or the oily layer. And this layer is really, really important, more important actually than we ever realized, because this stops the tears underneath from evaporating. So I want you to just think about, just keep in your mind this top oily layer and the aqueous layer in the middle, because they're the two I'm going to really concentrate on. So there's two main types of dry eyes. The first one is called aqueous deficiency or aqueous deficient dry eye. And this is, as it says on the tin, due to a reduction or a lack of that watery layer of the tear film. So this, when there's a lack of water, it can make the eyes feel salty and uncomfortable and cause inflammation. Now the watery layer, if we just go back to the slide previously, that watery layer in the middle there is produced by the lacrimal gland, which, as you can see on the image, is just sat in the upper lid. And when this gland is damaged in some way, or it's not performing as well, then we get less of that watery layer of the eye. Now, this gland can be damaged a number of ways. One is through autoimmune disease, and the most common type really is Sjogren's syndrome. Sjogren's syndrome is an autoimmune disease that attacks really all the fluid producing glands in the body. So very often someone with Sjogren's will also have a dry mouth, dry skin, and struggle to swallow, as well as the symptoms of dry eye. Other autoimmune diseases that can attack the lacrimal gland are thyroid disease, rheumatoid arthritis, certain medications, and also as we get older, the lacrimal gland tends not to work as effectively. Now, having said all of this, aqueous deficiency dry eye in isolation actually only occurs in around 10% of people. And this is what we originally thought dry eye was, hence the name dry eye, lack of water. But actually, we're now finding that's not true. In fact, most people who have dry eye are suffering with evaporative dry eye, and something like 85 to 95% of people with dry eye will have evaporative dry eye. And this is also known as Meibomian Gland Dysfunction. And this really is all to do with that oily layer, that top layer, which prevents the tears from evaporating underneath it. So the Meibomian glands are little tube-like structures, as you can see on the image there, that are in the upper and the lower eyelids. And these glands produce oil every time that we blink. So each time we blink, we get that nice oil film across our eyes, helping to prevent those tears underneath from evaporating. Now, what happens with Meibomian gland dysfunction is those glands get blocked or damaged, and when that happens, the oils solidify within the glands and they no longer release out onto the tear film. And this is when problems start, because then that starts causing inflammation. You start getting this vicious cycle of dry eye, and over time those glands stop working and atrophy, and then it can become very, very difficult to treat those symptoms of dry eyes. And there are lots of different things that can cause Meibomian gland dysfunction in our modern lifestyles, which I'm going to go through now. Actually, before I do that, there are two big conditions which can make dry eye worse, particularly Meibomian gland dysfunction, and that is rosacea and Demodex. And for those of you that suffer rosacea or who understand rosacea, it is an inflammatory skin condition which causes these red telangiectasia, or like little spider veins on the face, which release inflammatory agents into the skin, into the tear film. So what happens often if someone has rosacea, the little spider veins or telangiectasia can migrate onto the eyelids of the eyes. So you can see in this second image here, there's lots of these little tiny red spider veins on the lower eyelid. and these release inflammatory agents into the tear film, which cause inflammation and then eventually block the meibomian glands and, make dry eye symptoms worse. So if rosacea is something that you suffer with, it's worth getting on top of that alongside dry eye treatments. The second thing, and this one's, if you're a bit squeamish, this one might make you feel a little bit funny, is Demodex. Now, Demodex are parasitic mites, and they live in our hair follicles. Quite normally, it's quite normal to have Demodex mites. They live in the hair follicles of all humans, so they are in our lashes, they're on our skin. But what can happen is they can overgrow, if you like, they can overpopulate. And there's a couple of reasons which call this. One is if we're quite run down, you can get that overpopulation of bacteria and Demodex mites. And the second one is age. As we get older, we're much more likely to have a Demodex infestation. And some studies are showing that between 80 to 100% of people over the age of 70 will have an infestation of Demodex. And when we get an infestation of Demodex, they and their waste, if you like, their waste products block up the meibomian glands. So again, making meibomian gland dysfunction worse. Another big key trigger in our modern lifestyles that are causing meibomian gland dysfunction across all age groups are our use of digital devices. And there's two main reasons for this. The first one is reduced blinking. So if you remember, every time that we blink, we release those oils onto the tear film. Well, when we're in normal conversation, we blink between 12 and 20 times a minute. When we're on a screen, that reduces to 5 times a minute. And in gamers and things like that, it can reduce even further to 2 times a minute. So when we're really hyper focusing, we're not blinking as much, so we're not getting that lovely oil onto our tear film, which eventually leads to those glands blocking. The other thing is we don't blink as fully. So very often when we're looking at screens or even driving and things like that, actually, we tend to do what we call these partial blinks. So we're not doing full strong blinks. So the eyes are constantly exposed, leading to more tears evaporating. So what can we do if we're on the computer or phones? Because for a lot of people, it is our lifestyles now. I mean, we at Style Optique, we have to use computers. But my son's working in a job where he's on the screen all day, and then you're driving, and this is our modern lifestyle for lots of different people. We can't get away from screens. So what can we do? Well, first of all, we can make sure we set up our screen optimally. So if our screen is above us, a lot more of our eye is exposed. So it's far better for your screen to be sort of directly ahead or ideally just slightly below, because as you can see on the images there, when we look straight ahead, less of our eye is exposed. And when we look slightly down, even less of our eye is exposed. So yeah, and this is actually why some people find it easier to look at a phone than they do at a computer screen. So yeah, keeping your monitor arm's length and ensure it is at eye level or lower. That can help with the eyes. The 20-20-20 rule, every 20 minutes, take 20 seconds to look 20 feet away. Just give your eyes a little bit of a break from the screen. And finally, blink regularly. Sounds silly, but there's even apps to remind you to blink. If every half an hour or so, you really just take a few moments to do some nice big blinks and just hold the eyes for a few seconds and just make sure you're doing some nice full blinks. And doing that throughout the day can help trigger or stimulate really those meibomian glands. Few other things you can do if you're on the computer is make sure that if you need a prescription for the screen, that you have a prescription that provides a little bit of eye protection and also stops the eyes from having to work quite so hard, which will help with symptoms of dry eyes. A desk humidifier can be really, really helpful to inject that moisture into the air. You can even get little plug-in ones that you can plug in to your laptop, I think, from Amazon and things like that. And having an artificial tear on hand as well, just to help lubricate the eye through the day. Sleep. A lot of people don't think about this one, but having a good night's sleep is really, really important to help symptoms of dry eyes. Because when we sleep, it's the only time our eyes are closed, so our tears are not evaporating. And during our sleep, our tear film renews itself, it redistributes. And of course, when we sleep, our whole body goes under all these general repair and maintenance processes. And also, the eye cleanses out any debris and infectious agents. Now, on the subject of sleep, some people find that actually, after a good night's sleep, they wake up and their eyes feel even worse. Or maybe they wake up in the middle of the night with painful, sore eyes. Well, this is due really to one of two things usually. First thing is something called nocturnal lagophthalmos, and this is not an island in Greece. This is when you don't sleep with your eyes closed or your eyes fully closed. So you may sleep, some people sleep with their eyes open, actually, that's quite rare, but you can sleep with, even if a sliver of your eyes are exposed throughout the entire night, that leads to evaporation of the tears and quite uncomfortable eyes. Now, you may not know if you do this or not. It might be worth asking a partner or to see if they've noticed that. Or often if you come for a dry eye assessment and we put some specialist dye in your eye, we can see if there's any areas of damage. And if that area of damage is in that lower part of the cornea, then it's usually because you're not fully closing your eyes during sleep. The second reason that people can wake up with uncomfortable eyes or redness around the lids or crusty lid margins in the morning is because of something called blepharitis. And this is like a bacterial infestation of the lids. Could be, there's different types of bacteria, but also the Demodex mites could also cause this. So, and unfortunately, it's because at night bacteria, Demodex, are more active. So there's a few things we can do if you suffer with these kind of symptoms. The first one, particularly with the nocturnal lagophthalmos, is using a thick viscous gel at night. We don't always like you to use these viscous gels in the day because when you put them in, it can make things seem a little bit blurry at first. Whereas at night time, great to put in the eye and produce that nice thick layer over, to protect your eyes through the night. Having a sleep mask so you're not getting that exposure to the air. There are specialist moisture masks that you can also get. Having a humidifier in your bedroom at night, and particularly for blepharitis, bacterial blepharitis, using a good specialist lid cleanser morning and night just to help clear away those bacteria and Demodex mites. Diet's a really big thing now. I mean, our gut health is really, really important for our general health. I would say the key things with dry eye are making sure you drink plenty of water, having lots of omega-3 foods. So here we are talking about the oily part and the water part of the tears. So omega-3s, fish and things like that in your diet, or even taking a supplement can be really helpful with some of the symptoms of dry eye and also help to reduce inflammation. Some people have found that an anti-inflammatory diet works really well for dry eye as well. So gluten-free or reduced sugar diet, and avoiding really inflammatory foods like processed meats and things like that. Alcohol, there has been some studies done on alcohol and it can affect the tear film. They have found alcohol, I believe, in the tear film in some studies, but it has been found, unfortunately, ladies, that alcohol seems to be a lot worse on a woman's dry eye than it does on a man's. So the next thing that we're all exposed to is environmental conditions. So some key things which affect dry eye are those environmental conditions that lead to low humidity, so less water content in the air. So things like air conditioning, either when you're out and about, or the aircon that we have on in our cars in the summer, heating as well, that dries the environment and our lids, smoky conditions, and allergens and things like that in the summer can affect our dry eye symptoms. So in the summertime, Loads and loads of allergens, which I just mentioned. So having an air purifier, which can clear out some of those allergens, can be helpful. Wearing sunglasses to protect the eyes when you're out and about. There are specialist artificial tears, which have like an anti-itch component to them if you tend to suffer with the pollen. It can be handy in the summer to refrigerate your artificial tears just because that coolness can feel really comfortable. And cold compresses if you're finding that that your eyes are quite itchy, because sometimes the cold can help reduce an itch. In the wintertime, similar, but having a humidifier in the bedroom or a humidifier around the house just to introduce the water really to the air, and a thicker tear. Some people might find they need a thicker artificial tear in the winter or more of a gel-based tear at night. Now, makeup and dry eye. Unfortunately, a lot of women who have enjoyed wearing makeup throughout their lives tend to find that they can't wear it anymore as they get older and their eyes get dry. They find it irritates the eyes, their eyes water, and it can be, yeah, it's not fun anymore wearing makeup. A lot of makeup products have preservatives in them, which can irritate those very delicate tissues around the eyes. However, there are three brands I quite like, which are developed by ophthalmologists and optometrists, which are more eye friendly. And that's Eyes Are the Story, Butterflies Eye Care, and 2020 Beauty. So they're three really good brands which are designed specifically for people with dry and sensitive eyes. But there are some key things you can think about when you are applying makeup and using makeup. One is if you have dry eye, it's better really to use a cream eyeshadow than a glitter eyeshadow, because glitter or a powder eyeshadow can just go into the tear film much more easily. You get all those debris in the tear film, and that can be irritating and block the meibomian glands. Mascara, it can be helpful to change your mascara or any wet eye makeup really every 3 months, because Demodex mites and bacteria love mascara and love eyeliner, liquid eyeliner, and they can remain into it for up to 5 days. So make sure that you are getting rid of any of your wet eye makeup every 3 months, so you're not reintroducing bacteria or mites or anything into your tear film. It's useful to put mascara on from the mid to the ends of the lashes rather than going right into the lash line, because that can be a little bit triggering really for the meibomian glands. Also be careful with tight lining or putting eyeliner on the inner lid. Sometimes that can introduce makeup particles into the tear film again and block the meibomian glands. And then I would always say, if you can, avoiding lash extensions. Lash extensions, the glue in them can be irritating to the eye for one thing. And secondly, we found that people who tend to wear lash extensions aren't cleansing their eyelids quite as thoroughly. And this is largely because we're trying to keep those lash extensions going for as long as possible. So yeah, not great for dry eyes. One of the biggest things though that doesn't help dry eye is not removing the makeup properly. And it can be very difficult for you to see yourself whether you are fully removing all the makeup. But when we look on our big slit lamp and it's magnified up to 50, we can see these tiny debris often left in the lids, the lashes, and on the tear film, even of people who've taken their makeup off or believed to have taken their makeup off the night before. This second image here of these black dots under the lids, this is from a lady in Australia, and she used mascara for 25 years, and as she started to get older, her eyes were getting gritty and uncomfortable, and when the lid was flipped, it was seen that all these little build up, these nodules of mascara was built up under the lids. And if you can imagine, every time she blinked her eyes, it was like the whole eye was being scratched, and yeah, so not great really. So it's important to remove your makeup. And again, makeup remover is really difficult as well, because there's lots of preservatives in makeup removers. So things like micellar water is quite good. I really like Optase Life, which I've got here. It's for sensitive eyes and also for people with dry eye. It is an ionized water. It's a bit like micellar water, but it's an ionized water. So it almost works like a magnet, and it just gently put it over your eyes, and it almost like just pulls the makeup off, and it's really nice. So what I wanted to go through now is 4 daily steps you can do if you have dry eyes. This is also something you can do if you want to prevent dry eyes from occurring in the first place, because it's working on 4 key parts of dry eye. So the first thing is using a heated mask, then using an eyelid cleanser, using artificial tears, and a lipid supplement. So let's go through each of these. So the first of all, the heated mask. Now you get lots of different heated masks. Be very, very careful where you get them from, because ones that are from opticians and pharmacies and things like that, they're created to get to a certain temperature, so they're better for the eyes. And what they do, you just very often stick them in a microwave, pop them over your eyes for around 10 minutes, and it helps to heat up the meibomian glands and helps to stimulate the blocked oils. And this is something, if you have quite severe dry eyes, you really want to be doing this twice a day for 10 to 15 minutes. If you're doing it more as a preventative measure, or you've had an in-practice treatment and you just want to keep your eyes at a good level, once a week is perfect. An eyelid cleanser. So again, a daily cleanser can help prevent that overpopulation of bacteria in and around the eyelids, which again can lead to the tear film instability and more inflammation. I really like Purifies. This is a hypochlorous acid spray. I know the word acid sounds awful, but it's a hypochlorous acid spray. And hypochlorous acid is something that is naturally produced by our white blood cells in response to an infection. So this has been proven to work among all different types of bacteria and Demodex mites. And the great thing I like about this is you can spray it on your face, your whole face, with your eyes open or your eyes closed, a number of times a day. So if you're a screen user as well, it's nice just to use over your skin. Also really good for skin conditions like acne and rosacea. Artificial tears. Now, artificial tears help reduce discomfort and reduce evaporation of the tears. They're not a cure for dry eye. A lot of people say, oh, well, I was given artificial tears for a few weeks and they worked, but then I've still got dry eye. It's not a cure. All it does is help manage the symptoms. So artificial tears are something that you do need to be doing every single day, multiple times a day. And often people that don't notice benefits of artificial tears, it can often be because they're just not using them enough for the severity of their dry eye. And there are different formulations really for different symptoms. We like to use the range Hycosan. Some formulations are more for Meibomian Gland Dysfunction. Some have more of an oily component. Some have an anti-itch component. So there's different types of artificial tears, which is why it's good to have a dry eye assessment just to see which ones may be better for you and your specific condition. And a lipid supplement. A high quality, high dose omega-3 supplements have been clinically shown in numerous studies to diminish inflammation, help foster the healing of the eye surface, and also help to produce better quality oils for the tear film. So yeah, really good to, ideally you want to be getting it from your diet, but most of us today just don't get enough omega-3 from our diet. But the great thing about these kind of supplements is they're also great for your heart and joints and things like that as well. So let's talk about now some in-practice treatments. Now these are really, really exciting. If you are somebody that's been using drops for many, many years, or if you're someone whose dry eye is quite severe and despite doing all of these things, you're still not getting many benefits, or if you just forget to put your drops in and it's hard to keep on top of all of these different things that you need to do for your eyes, then an in-practice treatment may be something that's worth it for you. Because in-practice treatments, and the one we has now, Optilight, can work very, very quickly and efficiently and have long-term effects. So let's talk about IPL treatment for dry eyes. Now, IPL has been something that has been, well, we've been aware of it for some time in the optical industry, and we've known that it has great effects on dry eye, but there are different machines out there and different types of treatments. And I did a lot of research into this, and Optilight IPL is the best one out there. And actually, it's the only one that's been FDA approved for the treatment of dry eye. So while there are other devices, the Optilight is by far the best one. And not many practices have this particular machine. There's only a few of us across the UK. So you guys are really lucky here in Market Drayton and surrounding areas. So the great thing about this is it addresses multiple causes of dry eyes. And the way it works, if I can just pop this on here, is so Optilight delivers tiny little controlled pulses of light around the eye area. And this high energy, or this light, melts the solidifies oils in the Meibomian glands. It also kills off all those microorganisms, bacteria, Demodex mites that are in the lids. And what it amazingly does is it seals off any inflammatory vessels, so it stops any inflammatory agents going into the tear film. But one of the most amazing things that we found that it does is it is reinvigorating Meibomian glands. So ones that have stopped working and sort of lying dormant, it's reinvigorating them and getting them moving again. And also a big bonus is it improves the whole skin around the eye area because it also boosts the collagen as well. So I would say essentially it's like an anti-aging treatment for dry eye. It's almost getting your eyes back to a state that they used to be before they were dry. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. You do need maintenance treatments just to keep everything where we want it to be. So Optilight, just to reset your ocular microbiome and get it back to where we want it to be, typically is 4 treatments. 4 treatments, they take around 10 to 15 minutes and they're scheduled 2 to 3 weeks apart. And then once you've had those 4 treatments, most people have really, really great results and then just need a maintenance treatment every 6 to 12 months just to keep the eyes, you know, exactly where we want them to be. We also do a treatment called Zest, which we like to do as a complementary treatment with our Optilight. We found it increases the effectiveness. Most people start to feel the benefits of the Optilight treatment after the 3rd treatment. We found when Zest is done at the same time, they can often feel the benefits almost straight away. So this is a deep cleansing treatment using a natural ochre gel. Ochre gel contains polysaccharides which kill Demodex and bacteria and can remove years really of dirt, debris and combat inflammation. We do it alongside our Optilight treatments, and some people with Demodex and things like that may do this every 6 months, just as like a hygiene appointment really at the dentist. So I just want to share a few of our client results from the Optilight treatment. We've had quite a few clients go through this treatment in the last 18 months. I'll share 3 of them. First one is Joyce, and for her, she had a full night's sleep for the first time in years. So she was, when she came to us, she'd really been really aware of her dry, intense, itchy, gritty eyes, and it was really bothering her, and she was waking up at night in discomfort, having to put gel in the middle of the night. And she felt when she had her Optilight treatment that the effect of it was instant for her, and she's now able to enjoy her outdoor life, her hobbies, without having to use loads of eye drops. And most importantly, she said she experienced a full night's sleep for years. So it was life-changing for her. We've got Elaine. Elaine was somebody who was constantly on the computer. Her job is on the computer day in and day out. And she said, who even knew comfortable eyes could be a thing. She had just got used to having really uncomfortable eyes and when she was driving and when she was on the screen all day. And when she had the treatment, she was like, I'm even forgetting to put my drops in. My eyes feel so good. I didn't even know it could be a thing. And then we've got John. His main issue really was he was finding when he couldn't even look at a computer screen or drive for a certain length of time without feeling severe discomfort. He was getting quite a lot of pain after a very short period of time on screens or driving. And when he completed the treatment, he felt after about the second or third treatment, he could then do both without suffering any pain. And we've had lots more results like this. So, how do you know whether your symptoms are from dry eye, and how do you know what treatments are right for you? Well, at Style Optique, we like to do a full dry eye workup assessment. Now, in a normal eye test, there are lots of other things we have to do in a normal eye test. We have to check your vision, look at the back of your eye. There's lots of components to a normal eye test. And while we can see, yes, you have dry eyes, we often haven't got the time to go really in depth on that specific issue, the causes of it, and all those different things that surround it. So we do offer a 1 hour full dry eye assessment, and it is completely dedicated to this. We're going to find out about your lifestyle, your diet and things like that. We're going to go through a questionnaire together. And then we have an amazing machine called the Antares, which is for dry eye. And this looks at a few key things. It looks in depth. It gives us a map of your cornea so we can see if there's any dry areas. It gives us a really good in-depth tear film analysis so we can look at the quality and the quantity of your tears, how much oil is in them, how they're working. It also does a specialist imaging of the meibomian glands. So with this machine, we can actually look almost like a little x-ray of the glands in the upper and lower lids. So we can see if they're blocked, if they're atrophied. And then we look at your lids and lashes in depth. Do you have any bacteria? Are there any inflammatory vessels around your lids and lashes? And again, yeah, your lifestyle and things like that. So we look at all of these things together and then decide what's the best course of action for you. Now, most people, about 80 to 90% of people, are suitable for Optilite IPL treatment. So, and that would always be a great option. But there are other things that we can go through as well, like Zest or drops or your normal sort of dry eye routine. But this is a really good start for finding out the type of dry eye you have and looking at ways that we can manage it. So thank you very much for listening.